falls. Often they're laden with snow. So if it looks like it's okay, a couple taps and see what comes down. I don't like that pop very much, actually.
Now the trees that are dangerous, spruce isn't so bad, but lodgepole pine, those are pines there, and if a tree gets hit by another tree like a pine and gets injured, it becomes very weak. And so you can tell that by tapping the tree and you see a wobble. But black spruce, it doesn't do that, but it's pine. And the other thing is that if it's weak and the tree falls, then as it falls and then another tree intercepts it, it'll fold back and come very violently back down where you're standing. That's probably the biggest hazard, and I've seen that happen so often, that if the tree breaks a lot shorter from the ground there, then the other part is way longer. So as the tree falls, it breaks and then comes down. That's the most dangerous. And only certain trees do that, but not black spruce.
So the next thing we need to do is we need to pick a direction of fall. And that's a pretty important decision. I've got kind of a clear, I can't obviously fall it this way because somebody put a super shelter in the way. I can't put it that way because not only is Morris sitting there and we want him around for tomorrow at least, but I've got no place to stand anyway to effectively fell that tree that way.
Wow!
Timber! What would be the issue with falling the tree this way?
Vehicles.
What's that? Vehicles for one, and
Snowbank.
that's snowbank, right? So we're looking for a mound that tree goes over that thing, that butt's going to kick way up and bounce around, right? So by my estimation, we've got not a bad place to go here, but I've got some potential places that could hang up, namely that pine tree right there. So that's going to be my goal, is not to hang it up on that. These will brush by, but if it gets into the branches of that jack pine, we got a hanger on our hands. That's a pain in the ass.
When you guys are more than welcome. I'll show you there that you can cut down trees, but there has to be two of you. One of you is going to be a safety. The other person is going to be chopping, please. Okay. Have a safety when you're doing it.
Couple quick questions. Why would you want to generally cut down a green tree? I mean, most of the time, aren't you usually trying to gather firewood? That's not green. No, I know. But, you had mentioned that a green tree.
That it's a pain. Exactly. You've answered your own question, right? So you're going to see the value of a saw for processing dead dry wood. You can process this with an axe, but the more you use an axe, the easier it gets. But at the same time, you pass somebody an axe that hasn't used an axe much and ask them to chop a tree like that, and they'll usually be pretty disappointed at the way they're the way compared to a green tree.
Because it's so hard.
Yeah, it's better to learn with an axe on a green tree than move to dead ones for sure. Now, I need to move around the tree and make sure there's not something that's going to make the tree want to go a certain way. It can be the wind. It can be a heavy growth of trees on branches on one side, waiting on one side, or it could be the tree has a natural lean, or something making it want to fall. You don't want to try and work against that if you don't have to, right? There's things we can do to make the tree fall a very specific way. But what's next? Escape route. So after all that, now you've decided a safe direction for the tree to fall, but how am I going to get out of there when that tree starts falling? So this isn't a totally desirable situation, because if I choose to follow the tree that way, I think Randy's Jeep's out of the way. We'll show you a trick for estimating that. But my safest egress from a tree, so if the tree's falling this way, this is the safest distance, about 30 degrees off this way or 30 degrees off this way. So on that nice slippery plastic and towards you guys, that's one safe path. This might be another. So these are your first choice. This is your second choice. And then it gets progressively worse as you come around, progressively more dangerous as you come this way. So the safest direction is this way from your fall. And next thing when you approach the tree is anything that's in your way that's going to impede you cutting the tree, you get out of the way. So if there's underbrush you have to snip off, if there's little things you have to cut out of the way, anything that's in your range of swing, all has to be free and clear. And what else? I think that's about it. In this case, Randy's brave with both his camera and the Jeep. So how do we know where this tree's going to end up? So we've got a couple of options. One is we can use a hypotenuse triangle. So I can take something that's 90 degrees in the same length and I can back up and I can sight to the top of the tree and I can make when I can back up and see basically from here to the tip of the tree and where that hits the ground, looking from a low angle, that's approximately where the tree's going to fall. But an even simpler way is simply back way back from the tree and look and line up your axe to the top of the tree and go, and then you can see this potential hypothetical place roughly on the ground where the tree's going to end up. So it's quick and dirty, not as accurate, but it gives you a rough idea.
So and if you're gonna fell it that way, then you're looking from that way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
From like 90
right,
degrees?
exactly. 90 degrees, exactly. Good point. Exactly. So
Okay.
90 degrees from your
Did you
falling.
say about looking through your crotch?
No, I didn't actually. That puts you at about the 45 degrees. So if you can look up and see the
You
top
can see
of the
the
tree.
top of the tree.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to reach.
far to see the top of the tree.
And,
You can't do that, Rob?
Hey,
You can't do that? Grab your ankles and look through.
Sorry. Can you give us a demo and tell us how far the tree's gonna?
I'm thinking it's probably about here, Cal.
Yeah.
The top of the tree, if it falls right, will be about here.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're unsure about which way this tree, if we're getting dicey, we can use aids to help control which way the tree's gonna fall. So we could run a line up the tree and tie it to something so that at least if it starts to go, it can't go the wrong direction. We can use a couple of poles that are sharpened in a very specific way with a chisel point, and we can put it against the trunk and anchor them that way, just to ensure that it's not going to fall a certain way or to be an aid to push the tree over. In this case, we're just going to see how it goes. So,
And what's barber chair?
you want to do the barber chair? Let's do barber chair.
yeah.
Here's my little Grand Force. Really sharp meso crafting axe, but it may not have the weight that I need. But in a pinch, I could use that, and I may end up reverting to it if that wood is too nasty or if this axe isn't taking nice bites. This is a full-size 3-foot handled 3.5 pound head axe. This is probably like the tool that you want to use for if you're going to do some serious tree felling. And then this is just sort of a standard 2-foot with a little bit of a heavier head, and this is the one that sort of you might carry that is small enough to do some crafting, big enough to process a certain amount of firewood, and the size that you can fell reasonable sized trees.
When you go up to a tree and you do this, and you reach around the tree and touch your nose, if you can't touch your nose, you better know what you're doing.
Oh, phew! I don't know what I'm doing on this
Because
tree.
with a tree that
That's
big,
really-
there's all kinds of things that the tree will do, because you're not aware about many things that the tree will do that is trying to kill you as much as possible. So when you're tackling such a big tree, you're asking for serious cutting. You better know what to do. Something will come up on you.
Are there some that they grow torsioned, and as soon as you start cutting into them, they release? Is that what that barber chairing effect is, or what's barber chairing?
Barber chair. Well, you can explain it, but
Barber chairing is where you make your notch too long, and then the tree starts to fall before you're ready for it to fall.
Oh,
And the barber chair is where the stump, if you're cutting from one direction and you haven't gone around to cut from the other direction, the weight of the tree and wind and everything now causes the tree, your cut has been in, it weakens the tree, and so as a result the tree breaks and it splits, and so the tree might be way up here. So here's the barber chair, is like you'd sit there and there's the back, and this goes in this the direction it falls in the way it intended, but instead of it breaking there, it breaks there, and it means if it happens too fast and you stumble, the weight of the tree will maybe break and it'll end up with the stump being here and then falls off and crushes you. That's barber chair.
or the back end actually comes up like this too, the split, right? On
Yeah.
barber
oh, from
chair.
the backside of the
Yes,
split.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and that can, so you're not accounting your distance from the
You've got to
stuff right now.
You got to factor in the wind.
But having said that, you can make a series of cuts that encourages the barber chair because you're filing a small tree and you want it to be up here because you're
Yeah,
say, taking
especially
the bark off or something.
yeah, especially if you're peeling birch off a tree. You do it intentionally. Which,
So it's not
you
laying
keep
flat on the
chopping and
ground.
keep chopping until finally it might hopefully start to fall. But that's how it.
So
It's
thinking
actually
ahead,
confusing because it's not a common thing.
no,
Probably a couple times in my life a tree, in 45 years of that, a tree might have barber-chaired on me. Because you just cut too deeply on the first cut. You got to stop. Don't go beyond. If you go beyond the midpoint of the tree, you're encouraging a barber chair to happen. And when you get a hold of a copy of Bushcraft, look that up. I'm trying. There, I explain it verbally.
so one issue that I'm going to have when I do my back cut here is I'm going to be swinging in close proximity to the super shelter. So for that reason, I'm going to raise the cut up a little bit. And of course, I'm not practiced enough to have a really good backhand swing, cross-handed swing. So I'll likely do my back cut from this side, if you can. Right? Morris says he wouldn't hire me if I can't chop the tree from the same side, both sides. But the reality is, if we're felling that way, my back cut's going to be over here. Right? So if I try anything low, I'm not going to be able to get a swing.
You're gonna have to do it from this side.
What's that?
Not
Yeah,
from that side.
exactly. Cross-handed. That's what I said. So I said I'm not practiced enough. Well, I could chip away at it, but it just wouldn't be pretty. My right hand swing. So for that reason, I'm going to take the tree off a little higher, and then we'll saw it off close to the ground level, and we're done. Plus, it'll save my back. So the issue is, what gets us is the arc. So any strikes we do anywhere where they're cutting firewood or chopping a tree, we want our axe handle parallel to the ground. Right? And the higher we go, then the more dangerous, the more chance we have of doing an arc. So the notion of cutting a tree nice and low makes it many, many times safer than it does cutting up high, right? So I want to be careful with what I'm doing here.
So you're doing two things. You are staying an axe handle distance away from the tree and chopping like this. So you'll see that if he takes a proper swing, that the axe handle is thrown at the same parallel and so it doesn't glance to work.
It's raining. I'm already starting to see my directions a little bit off. Maybe
You
not
can
bad.
tell an expert axe user because there's very few chips. And inexperts, there's a whole large amount of small chips because they chop over and over and over again. They're doing it. So you should be able to kindle your first fire from the big chips that you produce.
Chainsaw is so much easier.
Not something to be in a rush.
So you'll notice how his axe head and his handle are thrown forward to reduce that circular motion. So you notice the lower chop is 45 degrees probably in the upper one, whereas most people, they want to chop straight in, or even worse, they try to chop upwards to create a neat knot.
Yeah, see, that's what I would have thought you were supposed to do.
That's how you get it in the head forehand.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this should be pretty level.
Guys,
You done? Now, when I put my axe on here now, not bad. I kind of want to favor the spruce because I know it'll brush by these branches, so I'm going to err to caution. And if I need be, give it a little help as it's falling. I can already see the center. A couple more whacks, and I'll be ready for the back cut.
Now, depending on the tree, when you got a dry, dead tree, it will act differently than a green tree. So you got to sort of decide whether you're going to chop a third of the way through, or 3/4 of the way through, or a quarter of the way through, whatever.
I'm just trying to meet this.
So you're going for about halfway through it, kind of?
Yep, just past half.
Okay, just.
I can go past half because it's straight in the season. No, it's strong wood.
Ideally, when you cut from the one side and then from the other, you stop and look around and then push the tree over. Whereas a lot of people, they keep chopping till it falls on its own. Maybe it's got some merit that
I know
you have enough.
chainsaw felling, you're never supposed to cut your hinge off.
Right. Neither with hacks.
Same, yeah. So that's your control of your direction.
So on the back cut, it's going to be a little bit higher than the front cut because we want to try and achieve exactly that hinge.
Keep the kickback.
Kind of an awkward position, but that's okay. See my hinge. Thickness both sides.
You're starting to.
Yeah,
he's gonna go.
Might be okay. Need to give it a little help. Just make sure it falls right away.
Beautiful.
Picked the right spot to say that's what
Now they
I watched it actually fall, going it up.
Should have broke, but
Because otherwise you gotta back up.
You can't be too careful.
You get hurt.
Now the killer that I want to point out to make sure they understood what I was trying to say. So here we got a tree,
You don't want to have to keep getting in and
and here we've got, this is the full length of the tree. Starts to fall. You should never take your eyes off the tree till it's laying still on the ground. Because when it starts to fall like that, a normal person says, how can that come back and kill me? And so what happens is it hits something like that, breaks. So this is a lot shorter from here to the ground than it is from there to there. And this comes back with great violence right where you were standing because you weren't paying attention because you figured, how could that ever come back and hurt me because it's falling away from me? But that's happened enough times that 45 years, probably maybe half a dozen times, that sort of phenomenon has occurred. So it's a common thing that probably catches a person who figures that surely your logic would say, how could this come back and hurt me? But that's working.
So that's why you don't want to stand there and admire. Really, get those 3 or 4 steps back, and then
What the tree is.
You can't be too careful.
Never
That's
happens to any other
right here,
yeah.
please.
Okay.
Just keep, and then how do you chop it in pieces? Limbing from
And how do I start your fire? And
Yeah.
so this is a good example of a cut that's gone like it should. So this cut should be relatively level. You're working your way in at 45. You should have a nice hinge here, 1.5 to 2 inch hinge, depending on the size of the tree, and then another flat spot coming in just higher than the other flat spot for your back cut. So that's a nice shot of what it should look like when you hack with a tree.